In Utah's Red Rock Wilderness, where cliffs hide ancient secrets, Ethan and Sarah set out for a romantic hike. Their last Instagram selfie ended with an abandoned car, keys in the ignition, and a note. Can't wait for the stars. What happened in that desolate maze? Locals whisper of a vengeful hermit turning canyons into a hunting ground. Police found screams on a low-frequency device. Will these clues solve the mystery or lead to a desert trap? The wind howled through the canyons like a distant scream, carrying the scent of sagebrush and sun-baked earth. In the vast expanse of southern Utah's Red Rock Desert, where the Colorado Plateau fractured into labyrinthine slot canyons and towering mesas, time seemed to stretch and warp under the relentless sun. This was Arches National Park's shadow side. Not the postcard vistas of delicate arch glowing at sunset, but the remote backcountry near Dead Horse Point, where cell signals died and the isolation pressed in like a vice. Locals called it the Devil's Playground, a place where the economy clung to seasonal tourism and mining ghosts, and where the culture was a stoic mix of Mormon resilience and rugged individualism. Here, the land didn't forgive mistakes, it swallowed them whole. It was on a crisp October morning in 2024 that the first chilling discovery was made. A park ranger, patrolling the dusty Jeep trails off Highway 313, spotted an abandoned Subaru Outback half-buried in a flash flood wash. The vehicle was Ethan's. License plate confirmed it. Utah tags, registered to Ethan Miller, 23, from the nearby town of Moab. The doors were unlocked, keys still in the ignition, a half-eaten protein bar on the passenger seat. No sign of struggle, but the trunk held 2 backpacks, untouched, with water bottles, trail maps, and a tent. Ethan's phone was there too, battery dead, last pinged at a trailhead 2 days prior. And clutched in the glove compartment, a crumpled note in feminine handwriting. Can't wait to see the stars with you. Love S. Jacob Miller stared at the photo on his phone, the one the sheriff's department had texted him an hour ago. His hands trembled as he gripped the steering wheel of his old Ford pickup, barreling down the Tulane blacktop toward the ranger station. Jacob was 28, a welder at the potash mine outside town. His life a grind of 12-hour shifts and quiet evenings nursing a beer on his porch, watching the mesas turn blood red at dusk. He and Ethan had grown up in Moab, orphans after a car wreck took their parents when Jacob was 18. He'd raised Ethan like a son, teaching him to hike the slick rock trails, to read the weather before a storm rolled in. Ethan was the dreamer, college dropout turned adventure guide, always chasing the next thrill. And Sarah Hayes, his girlfriend of 2 years, was the spark that lit him up. 22, with freckles and a laugh that echoed off canyon walls. She worked at the local coffee shop, saving for a van life dream. They're just lost, Jacob muttered to himself, the words tasting like dust. But deep down, a knot of guilt twisted in his gut. He'd been the one to encourage Ethan's love for the backcountry, sharing stories of their dad's solo treks. Lately, though, Jacob's own demons had pulled him away, pills for the back pain from the mine, washing them down with whiskey to numb the ache of loneliness. He'd blown off Ethan's last call, too foggy-headed to talk. Now, that regret clawed at him as the truck rattled over potholes, the radio crackling with static. At the ranger station, a squat adobe building hunkered against the wind. Jacob was met by Sheriff Elena Reyes. She was in her mid-40s, sharp-eyed and weathered, her uniform starched but her boots caked in red dirt. Reyes had come to Moab a decade ago from Salt Lake, fleeing a botched case that cost her partner his life. A drug bust gone wrong, whispers said. She carried that scar like a badge, her investigations methodical to a fault, trusting evidence over hunches. "Mr. Miller," she said, her voice steady but laced with that professional empathy that set Jacob's teeth on edge. "We got teams out there now. Search and rescue is combing the trails." Jacob followed her inside, the air thick with the smell of instant coffee and printer ink. On a corkboard, pinned photos of missing hikers stared back. Utah's deserts claimed a few every year, heatstroke or falls. But this felt different. Reyes spread out the initial report on a metal table. Vehicle discovered at 0800 hours by Ranger Tompkins. No footprints leading away. Recent rain washed him out. Last known location, Balance Rock Trailhead, per GPS data from Ethan's phone app. As if narrating a docuseries episode, Jacob could almost hear the voiceover in his head. In the unforgiving wilds of Utah, two young lovers vanished without a trace. What started as a romantic getaway turned into every family's nightmare. He shook it off, focusing on the details. Ethan and Sarah had left Moab on Friday, posting a selfie on Instagram, grinning against a backdrop of twisted junipers, captioned, "Off the grid for the weekend." Hashtag Utah Adventures. That was 3 days ago. No check-in since. The sheriff played a voicemail from Sarah's phone, recovered from the car. Her voice bright, wind-whipped. "Hey, Mom, we're heading into the canyons. Ethan's got this epic spot picked out. Love you." It cut off abruptly, static hissing like a warning. Jacob's mind raced with images. Ethan leading Sarah through narrow slots, their laughter bouncing off sandstone walls. But the desert had teeth. Flash floods, rattlesnakes, sheer drops. Or worse, people. Moab's underbelly included drifters, meth cookers and hidden trailers, and old-timers jealous of their solitude. Gossip in town was already bubbling. At the diner that morning, Jacob overheard whispers. Those kids probably got cocky, wandered off trail. One grizzled miner said, slurping coffee. Or maybe it's that hermit up in the hills, old Harlan Crow. He's been spotted lurking near the park boundaries. Harlan Crow. The name sent a chill down Jacob's spine. A reclusive Vietnam vet in his 60s, living in a ramshackle cabin on the edge of the plateau. Crow had a reputation. Arrested once for poaching, known for ranting about trespassers on what he claimed was ancestral land. Motivated by a deep-seated resentment, his family lost their ranch to park expansion decades ago. He patrolled the backcountry with a rifle, eyes haunted by memories of war and loss. Not a monster, but a man broken by betrayal, his pain festering in isolation. Reyes dismissed it for now. "We're treating this as a missing persons case. No evidence of foul play." But her eyes betrayed doubt. She'd seen too many accidents turn sinister. Jacob insisted on joining the search. By afternoon, he was hiking with the SAR team, the sun beating down like a hammer, sweat stinging his eyes. The air hummed with the drone of a distant helicopter, blades chopping the silence. They followed the trail Ethan had marked on his map, a loop through Elephant Hill, known for its precarious ledges and hidden alcoves. Jacob's boots crunched on gravel, each step echoing his pounding heart. He called out their names, voice raw. "Ethan, Sarah." Only the wind answered, carrying the faint scent of creosote. As dusk fell, painting the rocks in bruised purples, the team found the first sign, a discarded water bottle, Sarah's initials scratched into the plastic. It was off-trail, in a dry wash that funneled into a deeper canyon. Could have been washed down, a volunteer said, but Jacob knelt, fingers tracing the letters. It felt deliberate, like a breadcrumb. Back in town that night, Jacob couldn't sleep. His trailer on the outskirts of Moab creaked in the wind, the neon sign from the highway buzzing like an insect. He pored over Ethan's old texts, guilt gnawing deeper. "Bro, you gotta come with us next time. Sarah's dying to try her chili recipe." Jacob had laughed it off, too buried in his haze. Now he washed down another pill with coffee, staring at photos. Ethan at 10, gap-toothed grin after catching his first trout. Sarah baking pies at Thanksgiving, flour-dusted and joyful. Their lives were vibrant. Ethan's guiding tours, sharing stories of ancient petroglyphs. Sarah's art, sketches of desert blooms sold at local markets. Their absence carved a hollow in him. The next day brought interviews. Reyes set up at the community center, a faded building smelling of pine cleaner and old books. Jacob sat in, listening as friends recounted details. Ethan's coworker. He mentioned spotting some weird tracks last week, boot prints that didn't match hikers. Laughed it off, but seemed spooked. Sarah's mom, tear-streaked. "She called me Thursday. Said Ethan had a surprise planned. A secret overlook for stargazing." A newspaper clipping from the Moab Times was tacked up. Local couple missing in backcountry. Search intensifies. It quoted Reyes. We're urging anyone with information to come forward. Tension thickened like gathering storm clouds. Jacob drove to Crow's cabin uninvited, heart hammering. The place was a fortress of rusted barbed wire and junk cars, perched on a bluff overlooking the canyons. No answer at the door, but through a grimy window, Jacob glimpsed maps pinned to walls, red X's marking trails. A low growl from a chained dog sent him retreating, but not before spotting a fresh tire track matching the wash near the car. That evening, as rain pattered on tin roofs, a rare desert deluge, Jacob met Reyes at the diner. Over greasy burgers and flickering fluorescent lights, she confided, "Off the record, we've got reports of shots fired in the area last month. Crow fits the profile. Territorial, unstable." Her voice dropped, scarred by her past failure. "I lost a partner once because I ignored the signs. Won't happen again." Jacob nodded, the air heavy with unspoken dread. Outside, lightning cracked the sky, illuminating the mesas like skeletal fingers. He felt watched, the isolation of Moab closing in, the town's economy sputtering on tourist dollars, its people guarded against outsiders, yet bound by shared hardships. As the search dragged into day 4, a breakthrough came. A volunteer team, equipped with experimental gear from a university research project, picked up something anomalous. It was a low-frequency acoustic device designed to detect infrasound, vibrations below human hearing, like those from earthquakes or animal calls. But this one captured echoes in the canyons, amplified by the rock formations. In a makeshift command tent, amid the hum of generators and the tang of wet earth, the tech explained, "We deployed it near the wash. Picked up faint signals, repetitive thuds like impacts, and voices distorted but human. Screams, maybe." Jacob's blood ran cold as they played the recording. A low rumble, then a muffled cry cutting through static. It sounded like Ethan, "Help! Sarah!" fading into the void. The tent fell silent, rain drumming like a heartbeat. Reyes's face hardened. "This changes everything. It's not just a disappearance." Jacob staggered out into the storm, thunder rolling like judgment. The device had pierced the desert silence, revealing a horror lurking in the shadows. But whose hand had silenced them? The answer hung in the air, a cryptic message from the depths, pulling him deeper into the nightmare. The rain had turned the desert into a treacherous maze, slick rock trails gleaming like polished bone under the gray dawn. Jacob Miller stood at the edge of the wash where the acoustic device had picked up Ethan's faint cry, the memory of that distorted scream clawing at his insides. The air was heavy with the scent of wet sage and ozone, the storm's aftermath leaving the canyons eerily quiet, save for the occasional drip of water echoing off sandstone walls. Moab, Utah, felt more like a ghost town now, its tourist-choked streets subdued, whispers of the missing couple spreading like wildfire. The local diner buzzed with speculation. Heard they found screams on some fancy gadget. What's that Crow fella? Jacob's hands shook as he gripped a styrofoam cup of coffee, the bitter taste grounding him against the dread pooling in his gut. Sheriff Elena Reyes had doubled the search effort, calling in state police and a canine unit from Grand Junction. The command tent near Elephant Hill was a hive of activity. Maps sprawled across folding tables, radios crackling with updates. A newspaper clipping from the Moab Times was pinned to a board. Search for missing hikers escalates after disturbing audio discovery. It quoted a park official. "The backcountry is unforgiving. We're racing against time." Jacob overheard a volunteer muttering about the device, how its low-frequency sensors had caught something no human ear could, a pulse of desperation trapped in the canyon's acoustics. To Jacob, it was more than evidence. It was Ethan's voice, pleading, pulling him into the wilderness. He wasn't supposed to be out here alone, but Jacob couldn't sit idle. Ignoring Reyes's orders, he slipped away at dawn, hiking deeper into the labyrinth beyond balanced rock. The desert was a living thing, its red cliffs looming like silent sentinels, the air thick with the hum of unseen insects. His boots sank into muddy patches, each step a reminder of the flash flood that might have erased Ethan and Sarah's tracks. His mind replayed their last moments. Ethan's infectious grin, Sarah's sketches of desert flowers tucked into her journal. They'd planned to camp under the stars, a secret overlook Ethan had scouted. What went wrong? The question gnawed at him, laced with guilt. He'd been too lost in his pills and whiskey to join them, to protect them. The trail led to a narrow slot canyon. Walls so tight, Jacob had to turn sideways, the rock cool and gritty against his palms. His flashlight beam danced across petroglyphs, ancient spirals etched by hands long gone, a reminder of how the desert swallowed stories. Then he saw it, a scrap of fabric caught on a juniper branch, blue like the jacket Sarah wore in her Instagram post. Heart pounding, he bagged it in a Ziploc, just as Reyes had taught him to preserve evidence. Nearby, a cigarette, but lay half buried in the sand. Marlboro, not Ethan's brand. Jacob's pulse quickened. Someone else had been here. Back at the command tent, Reyes's face was a storm cloud when she saw him. "You're not a cop, Miller," she snapped, her voice low but sharp, scarred by years of carrying her past failure. "You go rove again, I'll have you detained." But her eyes softened when he handed over the fabric and cigarette. "We'll test these," she said, then lowered her voice. "The audio's got us spooked. We're pulling records on anyone with a history in the area, Crow included." Harlan Crow's shadow loomed larger now. The reclusive vet had been spotted near the park twice in the past week, his rusted Chevy pickup seen idling near trailhead. A deputy dug up an old report. Crow had threatened a hiker with a shotgun 3 years ago, claiming they trespassed on his land. His motive was rooted in pain. Decades ago, the government had seized his family's ranch for park expansion, leaving him with nothing but a cabin and a grudge. Jacob pictured him, grizzled, eyes burning with resentment, a man who saw every hiker as an invader. But was he capable of more than threats? The investigation took a darker turn that afternoon. A second team, sweeping a remote ridge, found a fresh boot print in a muddy alcove, too large for Ethan or Sarah. Nearby, a broken walkie-talkie lay shattered, its battery missing. Reyes's team bagged it, and Jacob overheard a tech muttering about blood traces on the plastic, too small for a definitive test, but enough to twist the knife in his chest. The Moab Times ran a new headline. "New evidence in missing hiker's case points to foul play." Locals flooded the sheriff's tip line, some claiming they'd heard gunfire in the canyons weeks ago, others swearing they'd seen Crow's truck near Dead Horse Point the night Ethan and Sarah vanished. Jacob's pursuit became personal. He started tailing leads on his own, ignoring Reyes's warnings. At the roadside bar, a dive on Moab's outskirts reeking of stale beer and cigarette smoke, he cornered a regular named Rusty, a wiry miner who'd known Crow for years. Over the jukebox's wail, Johnny Cash, low and mournful, Rusty leaned in, breath sour with whiskey. "Harlan's been off lately, talking about protecting what's his. Saw him last week with a new rifle, bragged in about night vision. Said the canyons were crawling with thieves." Jacob's blood ran cold. He imagined Crow stalking the desert under starlight, the low drone of cicadas masking his steps, a predator fueled by paranoia and pain. The bar's neon buzzed like a warning, and outside, the wind carried a faint howl from the mesas, as if the land itself was mourning. Reyes, meanwhile, was piecing together a timeline. Ethan and Sarah had checked in with a ranger at the park entrance Friday morning, their Subaru loaded with gear. A grainy trail cam photo showed them laughing at the trailhead, Sarah's arm looped through Ethan's. By Saturday, their phone signals dropped. The acoustic device's data suggested their screams came from a canyon near Devil's Garden, a maze of fins and spires where sound could bounce for miles. Reyes shared a case file snippet with Jacob, her voice clipped. October 12, 2024, 2100 hours. Infrasound sensors detect human vocalization, estimated 2 to 3 miles from balanced rock. Signal consistent with distress. The community was fracturing under the strain. At a town hall meeting, Sarah's mom, Linda Hayes, broke down, clutching a photo of her daughter. She was saving for a van, wanted to see the world with Ethan. Someone knows something. The room buzzed with accusations against Crow, against drifters, even against the park service for lax patrols. Jacob felt the weight of their stares. As Ethan's brother, he was both a victim and a suspect in their eyes. His pill dependency wasn't a secret in Moab's small circles, and whispers followed him. Maybe he was jealous of Ethan's life. Desperate for answers, Jacob drove to the university lab in Salt Lake, where the acoustic device was being analyzed. The lab smelled of antiseptic and ozone, monitors flickering with waveforms. Dr. Patel, the lead tech, played the enhanced audio for him. A low thud, rhythmic, like a shovel striking earth, followed by Ethan's voice, faint but unmistakable. "Sarah, run." Then a scream, cut off by static. Patel's voice was clinical. "The signal's degraded, but we're isolating frequencies. Could be digging, could be footsteps. The canyons amplify low-end sounds, makes pinpointing tough." Jacob's vision blurred. He saw Sarah's freckled face, her sketches, her dreams, all buried in that sound. Back in Moab, tension boiled over. A vigil for Ethan and Sarah drew hundreds, candles flickering against the desert chill. Jacob spoke, voice cracking. "My brother's out there. He's a fighter. So's Sarah. We won't stop." But as he stepped down, a shout came from the crowd. A local teen, eyes wild. "I saw lights in the canyons last night, near Crow's place." The crowd erupted, some demanding a manhunt, others urging calm. Reyes shut it down, but Jacob caught her glance, fear mixed with resolve. That night, Jacob broke into Crow's property. The cabin was dark, the dog absent. Heart hammering, he pried open a shed, finding a cache of maps, more red X's marking canyons, and a journal. A page, dated a week ago, read, "They keep coming, stealing my peace. Gotta end it." Jacob's breath caught, then headlights swept the yard. He bolted, journal in hand, tires screeching as he sped back to town. At the sheriff's station, he handed the journal to Reyes, who read it under flickering fluorescent lights, the hum of a space heater filling the silence. Her face darkened. "This is enough for a warrant," she said, but her voice shook, haunted by her past failure. "If Crow's involved, he's not working alone. These maps, someone's been scouting the park systematically." As they plan a raid, a call came in. A ranger had found a fresh trail marker, a rock cairn, unnatural, near Devil's Garden. Inside, wrapped in plastic, was a bloodied scrap of Ethan's shirt. Jacob's knees buckled, the runes spinning. Reyes grabbed his arm. "Stay with me, Miller. We're close." Outside, the desert night was alive with stars, but a low drone rose from the canyons, like the land itself whispering a warning. Jacob felt the betrayal of the town of Crow, of his own failures, closing in. Someone was out there, watching, and the truth was sharper than any knife. The desert night was a canvas of stars, each pinprick of light cold and unyielding above the jagged mesas of southern Utah. Jacob Miller stood at the edge of Devil's Garden, where the rock cairn with Ethan's bloodied shirt had been found hours earlier. The air carried the sharp tang of creosote and damp earth, remnants of the recent rain now evaporated under a relentless moon. Moab's small-town pulse had slowed to a hush. Its people gathered in living rooms, eyes glued to news updates. Search for missing hikers takes grim turn. The Moab Times ran a stark headline: "Blood evidence found in Arches National Park. Suspect identified." Harlan Crow's name was no longer a whisper, but a scream, his mugshot plastered across every screen in town. Jacob's chest ached with every breath, the weight of guilt and grief crushing him. He hadn't slept in days, the pills he once leaned on now untouched, replaced by a raw need to find Ethan and Sarah. The journal he'd stolen from Crow's shed burned in his memory. "They keep coming, stealing my peace. Gotta end it." Each word was a blade, carving deeper into his fear that his brother and Sarah were victims of a man unhinged by loss and rage. Sheriff Elena Reyes had mobilized a task force, state troopers, FBI, and local deputies, converging on the canyons with drones and dogs. But Jacob couldn't wait. He was here, boots crunching on gravel, flashlight cutting through the dark, driven by a brother's instinct and a desperate hope. Reyes caught up with him at the trailhead, her face etched with exhaustion and the shadow of her past failure. "Miller, you're not doing this alone," she said, voice low, the hum of a distant helicopter underscoring her words. She held up a warrant, fresh from a judge, authorizing a raid on Crow's cabin. "We've got his truck on camera near the park the night they vanished. In the journal, it's not just ramblings. It's a map to his traps." Her eyes met his, scarred but resolute. "He's been rigging the canyons, tripwires, deadfalls. He's hunting." The revelation hit Jacob like a punch. Harlan Crow wasn't just a recluse. He was a predator, his motives rooted in a twisted need to reclaim control. Decades ago, the government had taken his family's land, leaving him with a cabin and a festering wound. Hikers, tourists, even locals like Ethan and Sarah were intruders in his warped vision, trespassers on a sacred ground only he understood. His pain had curdled into obsession, each red X on his maps a marker of vengeance. The raid began at dawn, a slow pan of red rock and sagebrush under a sky bruised purple, like a scene from a Netflix thriller, strings rising in the score. Jacob rode with Reyes, the Jeep bouncing over rutted trails, dust swirling like ghosts. Crow's cabin was surrounded, deputies in tactical vests fanning out, their radios crackling. No movement inside. "Dog's gone." Jacob's heart pounded as they breached the door, the air inside stale with gun oil and mildew. Maps lined the walls, red X's circling canyons like a noose. A locked trunk held rope, duct tape, and a bloodied knife. Lab tests later confirmed traces of Ethan's DNA. But Crow was gone, his truck missing. Reyes cursed, her voice tight. "He knew we were coming." A deputy found a hidden cellar, its trapdoor concealed under a rug. Inside, a shrine of sorts. Photos of Crow's old ranch, newspaper clippings about park expansions, and a Polaroid. Ethan and Sarah, bound and gagged, eyes wide with terror. Jacob's knees buckled, the image searing into his mind. Reyes grabbed his arm. "We're close, Jacob. Hold it together." The trail led to a remote slot canyon, guided by Crow's maps and the acoustic device's lingering echoes. The university team had refined the data, pinpointing a cave system where the screams originated. As the team descended, the walls closed in, the air thick with the mineral scent of whetstone. Jacob's flashlight caught glints of quartz, like eyes watching from the dark. The low drone of the device hummed, picking up faint vibrations, footsteps, maybe, or something heavier. Then they found it. A hidden alcove, its entrance rigged with a tripwire. Reyes disarmed it, her hand steady despite the sweat beading on her brow. Inside, the air was sour with decay. Sarah's body lay crumpled against the rock, her freckled face pale, a gash across her temple. Jacob choked back a sob, falling to his knees. Ethan was nearby, unconscious but alive, pulse weak, wrists raw from ropes. Reyes called for medics, her voice cracking. Male victim alive, female deceased. Suspect still at large. The discovery was a gut punch, the cave's silence louder than any scream. Jacob cradled Ethan's head, whispering apologies, guilt flooding him. He'd failed to protect them, lost in his own haze when they needed him. Sarah's absence was a wound that would never heal, her vibrant life, her sketches, her laughter, snuffed out by a man's madness. The medics airlifted Ethan to a hospital in Salt Lake, where he stabilized, though his memories were fractured, haunted by flashes of Crow's rifle and Sarah's screams. The manhunt for Crow intensified, a cinematic chase across the desert's vastness, drone shots capturing the endless red rock under a merciless sun. Jacob stayed in Moab, torn between Ethan's bedside and the search. Tips flooded in. Crow's truck spotted near Canyonlands, then abandoned at a gas station. A hiker reported a man, matching his description, limping, carrying a rifle. Reyes pieced together Crow's motive through interviews and evidence. A Vietnam vet broken by loss, he saw the park as his last stand. Every hiker a thief stealing his legacy. The Polaroid was his trophy, the knife his justice. Days later, they cornered Crow in a remote canyon, his silhouette stark against the setting sun, rifle slung over his shoulder. The standoff was tense, voices echoing off the walls like a documentary climax, low strings swelling in the imagined score. "Drop it, Harlan!" Reyes shouted, her gun trained, her past failure fueling her resolve. Crow's eyes were wild, his voice raw. "This is my land. You took everything." He raised the rifle, but a sniper's shot ended it, his body crumpling into the dust. Silence followed, broken only by the wind's mournful howl. The aftermath was chaos. Moab became a media circus, news vans clogging Main Street, reporters quoting locals. We always knew Crow was trouble. The Moab Times ran Ethan's hospital statement. He wanted us gone, said we didn't belong. Sarah's funeral drew hundreds, her sketches displayed on easels, a testament to a life cut short. Jacob stood at her grave, the desert stretching endless before him, guilt a stone in his chest. He'd quit the pills, started therapy, but the hollow remained. Sarah's absence, Ethan's trauma, his own failures. The trial never came. Crow's death closed the case, but not the wounds. Ethan recovered physically, but struggled with nightmares. His adventurer's spirit dimmed. Moab's economy leaned harder on tourism, the tragedy a grim draw for true crime junkies. Reyes, scarred but vindicated, stayed on, her office now adorned with a photo of her old partner, a reminder to trust her instincts. Jacob moved to a new trailer, away from the neon buzz of Moab's highways, seeking quiet. But the desert never let go. Some nights, under a star-choked sky, he swore he heard gravel crunch outside his window, the echo of footsteps in the dark. The land held its secrets, and though Crow was gone, the canyons whispered of others waiting, their pain ready to spill over. The story ended, but the dread lingered, a haunting note in the desert's song. 6 months after the blood-soaked standoff in the Utah canyons, Moab simmered under a late spring sun, the red rock mesas glowing like embers. Jacob Miller sat on the porch of his new trailer, far from the neon hum of town, the air thick with the scent of blooming yucca. He was sober now, the pills gone, replaced by therapy and the slow grind of healing. Ethan was in Salt Lake, piecing himself back together, but the spark in his eyes, once lit by desert adventures with Sarah, had dimmed. Sarah's sketches hung in Jacob's trailer, her desert blooms frozen in pencil strokes, a reminder of a life stolen. The Moab Times had moved on, its pages now filled with summer festival ads, but the town's scars lingered. Locals whispered of strange lights in the canyons, and a ranger found a crumpled journal page near Crow's old cabin, its ink faded but chilling. They'll never take it all. Was it Crow's final rant, or a hint of others sharing his grudge? Jacob didn't know, but the words kept him awake, the desert's silence too loud. Some nights, as stars blanketed the sky, he'd step outside, boots crunching on gravel, straining to hear beyond the wind's low moan. The canyons held their secrets, their echoes unbroken. A faint hum, like the acoustic device that found Ethan, seemed to rise from the earth, a ghostly pulse. Jacob shivered, imagining a voiceover for the Netflix series this could become. In the desert, some stories don't end. They wait.